Okay. It's 8:01, and it looks like we have as full a contingent as we're going to have today. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. Just in terms of attendance, all the members are in attendance except Tony, who sent his regrets. He has a conflict, so he's not here today. Um, and I believe right now we've got two sets of minutes to approve.
We
Uh,
do.
Again, for those, I don't have those up, but I read through them and I had no issues with them. For those, when we get around to voting, if you missed that meeting, please abstain from voting on it. Okay, on the March 21st minutes, any comments, questions, changes that haven't been picked up by Wendy already?
They looked good to me. March 21 looks good to me.
Okay. Yeah, I sent them out and I didn't get any corrections or additions back. So
Okay.
that one's good. Okay, how about the
Hang on a sec. Let's vote on that.
Oh,
All
sorry.
those in favor of approving the March 21st minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing no opposed, it passes unanimously. Okay, on to April 4.
They look good to me.
Look fine to me too.
And me.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
hearing no further comments, I'll take a vote on that. All those in favor of approving the April 4 minutes, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, they pass unanimously. Anne Marie, do we have any public correspondence?
We do not.
Okay. Moving forward to old and ongoing business, the first item, and this is going to take a while to discuss, is the digital equity plan report and way forward. First, the big disappointment. First of all, our letter, which was sent on the 4th of April, was deferred from the meeting on the 9th to the meeting last Tuesday, the 16th, requesting that the town apply for the grant and stating the reasons why and giving a roadmap. I got up and I presented that, and there was a bit of confusion a little bit. I got a communication from MJ and said that the town administrator thought that we might not be eligible because they had gotten a large grant for cybersecurity from MBI and we might be maxed out. And then at the meeting, the first item was that Marlene clarified that quite a bit.
Mhm.
And Wendy and John, please chime in if I get this wrong. Apparently, the MBI sent a letter to the town and immediately granted them a first initial ceiling of $70,000 for digital equity implementation. With a couple.
What they said they put it in reserve. It hasn't been actually granted yet. They've notified us that they will once we give them what we need or what they want.
Right, and what they need is they need final approval of the digital equity report, and then they need. It sounded like Wendy and John, correct me. They needed a proposal for how the money was going to be spent. Okay, and so then the next discussion was that the Cape Cod Commission, Steve Tupper and the Helene, the digital equity team, would be in to talk about this. They were supposed to have been in on Tuesday, and that got postponed because of a conflict. I don't remember what it was. So they were going to push that back into May. And somebody said May 19th, and then MJ pointed out, oh, that's the election. We're not going to meet then. So it's pushed back to the 28th. I next said, well, again, with the RFP, and the link is at the bottom of the one of the documents we sent, the deadline for that proposal is May 31st. And so there was some concern about whether that deadline absolutely applied to us. Some uncertainty about whether the $70,000 reserve fund with an option to go higher than that, in fact, was the same or a separate funding opportunity as the one listed in the public RFP, whether the two were the same, and then for the town's funding opportunity, whether the May 31st deadline applied to that. And there were no answers for any of this. So the town administrator's office is going to pursue this and get back and identify exactly what the overlap or the differences between the two are, and more crucially, whether the May 31st deadline applies to the town money.
Bob, a couple of things confused me on this issue. First, this came as a complete surprise to me because I didn't know that the MBI had been in touch with the town. So that kind of took me back, because I thought everything was kind of funneling, at least in parallel, through us, so that we were to be aware of what was happening. So that was the first thing, and the second thing was the deadline. I'm still a little unsure about exactly who's pulling the strings here. Is it the Cape Cod Commission? Is it MBI? Did you have any clarity on that?
None whatsoever.
Was I mistaken in understanding that this money goes to Cape Cod Commission to play with and not directly to the town? Or was that something else entirely?
That's Wendy, that's part of the confusion. The RFP,
yeah.
and again, if you look at the timeline and the link at the bottom, the RFP from MBI basically said that the MBI would immediately approve any town with a digital equity plan in play, I guess, would approve their plan development contractor for an add-on, unspecified add-on for however, they didn't specify a ceiling in the RFP, to continue with the process and prepare an implementation proposal. And the implementation proposal, again, is under that public RFP. It is unclear right now whether this new reserved fund for the town, which does require some sort of proposal, in fact, can use the Cape Cod Commission and get MBI to pay the Cape Cod Commission to develop the proposal.
But why is this being overcomplicated? It sounded like MBI is just reserving the 70,000 so that they don't run out of funds pending everything else. So they're like, if they're blocking the money off, because they may supposedly probably have a limited, what's the size of the grant program? So why can't, under information gathering, we just get crystal clear clarity at MBI and fire off these questions and get some information to help this process?
We can at least ask. Whether they respond is another matter.
I think also going to the Cape Cod Commission, because for one thing, all we have is a preliminary plan to which we voiced some concerns. And I don't know what the actual plan looks like. I haven't seen the actual plan yet. What I do think that came out in the meeting, what we tried to stress, is that there are some easily attainable goals, one of which is to improve things in public buildings, in the public library, and making certainly a kind of a public hotspot available outside of the building for those that can't necessarily afford internet access. They could at least drive up to the library, park in the parking lot, and connect up, which I think would be, it would be useful to certain of our citizens, particularly since apparently that the FCC or federal program that discounts internet access is apparently going away.
Yeah.
So people who are, tight financially might want to take advantage of it. And that's something that's, Jed will tell you, is very easily attainable. That is something that we can just do. It's, the money would be there. They talk 70,000, possibly up to 100.
Yeah.
It just seemed kind of unclear, because it seems like everything was going between Marlene and MBI, and I didn't have any knowledge that any of this stuff was going to happen. So, I would hope that they would at least reach out to us for some guidance on this. But, I'm concerned that the funding may not go to these things that were identified in the study, because already they're talking about, okay, well, money is going to go towards cybersecurity, which may be very valuable, but I don't think that was one of the goals that was set out
That's a different grant. There's community compact grants, which have a bunch of categories, and they have restrictions about you can't get more than like one. So I can find you that grant program if you give me a couple of minutes.
Okay, so you're saying that this is separate from that, and that we would just, I think, as a committee would want to be concerned with at least directing some of those funds towards the things that were identified by the Cape Cod Commission, that we're all in agreement. Yeah, this is a good idea. Portable hotspots and expanding library access are things that would be helpful to everyone.
Jed, you have your hand up?
Yeah. So I'm kind of in the camp with Brian. I don't think it's all this complicated. I think I agree that basically MBI is sequestering some money. And I think they looked at the Cape Cod Commission as the contractor here. The Cape Cod Commission would do the proposal. That's the way it's all kind of laid out, the way I see it. I think it's a matter of engaging the Cape Cod Commission to get this going.
Yeah. I have to
Agreed.
tell you one limitation here, and I was told this explicitly, is that since the Cape Cod Commission is a contractor of the town, communications with the Cape Cod Commission on digital equity have to go through the grant administrator, which is Liz Hartshorn, and she's the one who
Great.
told me this.
Great.
Wait, I thought
That's what we
the
do.
Cape Cod Commission was going to be the grant administrator.
They're the
I'm-
contractor.
That's the question that's a little bit foggy in the gray area. So MBI reached out to the town because of where we're at with our digital equity probe. Compared to other communities, we're ahead of the game with respect to other communities on Cape Cod with a digital equity plan. And because of that, we became eligible for this $100,000 grants that we've been talking about. And the reason why we, had the meeting Tuesday night from this committee to advise the select board on this grant and opportunities and advise them on where we think that money should be spent.
Right.
We're a day late because, that process and from what I'm gathering the wheels are already in motion. So MBI said to the town of Bourne, we're reserving the $70,000 out of this $100,000 grant we're offering to communities because you're so far along with your digital equity. You've already it's already been identified areas of need. So now they're putting together the proposal, right? I don't know that the Cape Cod Commission, because they were consultants with the town of Bourne, are doing the legwork for the proposal, or if it's actually the administration doing the legwork for the proposal. And once that process happens, right, it will then, the monies, they'll review it. They may up the amount, or they may keep it at the 70,000, or they may drop that amount, depending on what's in the proposal.
Yeah.
And then the monies will be granted. So I took it as this $100,000 grant process. They actually came to us quicker than we could get to them because of where we're at in our digital equity planning. And we already qualify for the money.
I just have to, on behalf of the committee, and anybody on the committee can correct me, I've got to express some consternation about how we have been kept in the dark about this by the town administrator's office, and also the potential, as John just said, for the elements that we identified from the draft plan potentially not being properly scoped in the whatever cost proposal is being sent to MBI.
But they're not, I know, they're not beholden to us. The town administrator sends to select board, and we're just getting that information now.
Mhm.
This is just the beginning of the process. We're hearing it, we heard it at the same time Tuesday night that you were presenting. That was the first time we were notified about the monies that were on reserve from MBI. MBI doesn't have an obligation to even respond to anything we ask them for. Their obligation would be to the town first. So,
Yep.
and even the town administrator. So that's just the process. I know we've expressed that we wanted to be part of that process, or these are the recommendations that we've made. They have the letter, they have the recommendations. I think the follow-up is to have conversations with the town administrator. She is going to send me the proposal. Once that's drafted, I'll get the proposal. Whether it's coming directly from her or coming through Cape Cod Commission, I don't know the answer to that.
So is what you're saying is that the town administrator's office is going to propose how the funds are spent?
I don't know if it's her specifically or if it's through the Cape Cod Commission, because they had consulted them, right? Through this
So
whole
it's-
digital equity planning process. I don't know the answer to that. But either
It's
way,
crystal
the
clear on
monies will
MBI's
be
site.
expended. The monies will be, the town, I'm not sure that the Cape Cod Commission is going to be responsible for expending the money. I'm gonna
Yes.
guess, I don't know that through this particular process, or if they're going to say, give that to the town as expending the process.
I think Brian can clarify that. Go.
Yeah, so it's a little frustrating because, I've read the documents inside and out, and then to be kept in the dark when I could answer this in 5 seconds to avoid half of these confusions. But can I share my screen? MBI has the layout of how this grant works in an infographic on their website and makes it crystal clear of how this works and who does what. So they got the infographic. Town becomes eligible upon completion of the digital equity plan shred. So what has happened is, because we are 70% done, they've just said we reserve 70% of the money. Notifying the town, MBI will inform the municipality and the planning consultant. So MBI has an obligation to inform the town administrator and Cape Cod Commission via email. Once approved, MBI will amend the contract with the planning consultant, so the Cape Cod Commission, to reflect the additional work. So it appears that the planning consultant, along with MBI, works out the contract and all the money. Then the planning consultant is supposed to work with all the different partnerships and whatnot and whatever it takes to do the job. Then comes back with a plan to MBI, basically. Here's our budget, here's our proposal, this is what it's going to cost. MBI reviews. Then MBI engages in work order with the municipality for the project implementation, which the money flows to the commission. MBI contracts with the municipality and or the Digital Equity Partnership Program partner, depending on the scope of the work. So.
Right, but I'm saying, Brian, that we may have already expended our needs from the Cape Cod Commission. And if we haven't, with respects to this specific digital equity plan and layout, then the Cape Cod Commission would still be involved. If we have expended our consulting contract or what we wanted the commission to do with respects to the digital equity plan, it would revert back to town administrator's office.
I'm sorry, Anne Marie, did you say expended? What does
Well,
that mean?
So we contracted the Cape Cod Commission to do the digital equity plan, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know the full scope of what that contract entailed, right? So we contracted them as consultants for this digital equity plan. If the contract is over with them with respects to what that contract said with the digital equity plan, then there really isn't a consultant as much as there is the town administrator's responsibility falling on the town administrator, well, through the select board, the town administrator's responsibility to have this proposal done. That's the question I don't know the answer to.
Can we make a formal
So-
request to get an answer out of the town administrator on that?
Well, I think you can make
Well,
it from.
You don't have to be formal, I'll just ask.
Right.
Right, and also we have to approach, I mean, for one thing, this is, we don't have a final report yet, or recommendation, or plan rather, from the Cape Cod Commission. We had a preliminary plan to which we said, this is good, and these things need to be and other things need to be clarified. Do we know when we're gonna get that? I'm assuming we would need that final set of recommendations in order to proceed here. Do we know when that's gonna be done and submitted?
I don't know, because that has to come before the board, and the board actually has to approve and accept the final digital equity plan
Right, and we have
for implementation.
right. So, and according to what Bob is saying, we have a very limited time available to do that. So
Yeah.
We do, which sorry, Jed, we do, which I tend to think that March 31st, that May 31st date may not apply.
My point
That's
was
the
that-
question I specifically asked of Marlene to clarify at the meeting on Tuesday. If any of the funds that they've set aside for the town, either the $70,000 or the $100,000, are contingent on meeting that May 31st deadline, then we may have, I don't know, ask for an extension from MBI because of the interference with town meeting and town election. I think that would be reasonable, that we shouldn't be the only ones to be in that position.
So, yeah, I just have two comments. I guess one is, I don't think we're going to see the final plan before we finish the proposal. So I think that we should expect that's going to be the case. We might see the presentation from Cape Cod Commission, but I don't think the final document. It also seems to me that that a small contingent, maybe it's Bob and Anne Marie, need to meet with Liz Hartsgrove, and probably can get a lot of questions answered through a meeting with her.
You can try. I think going back to the initial concept of, it doesn't appear that, and this may be entirely unintentional, but it doesn't appear like clarifications are going to be coming from that quarter without, shall we say,
so
extensive
look at 'em.
efforts to pry them loose.
Take a look at what's on my screen. So I think there's a little bit more clarity in the FAQ in what's going on. So the 70,000 reservation is for people that don't have the plan done by the end of April. And they've reserved the money. So the 70,000 bit of it isn't, I don't think, based upon the language, is not subject to that deadline. But to get the other 30,000, it would be, because this amount is subject to increase to 100,000 based on review and approval of the budget and the application. And there's also language about the digital equity plan's got to be approved. So for municipalities that have completed the plan by the 30th, deadline to apply is the 31st. So when is our digital equity plan going to be done?
But that's the question I've been asking.
Well, again, the next time we talk to the commission and the select board sees the commission is going to be May 28th.
It gives you 3 days to.
But again, the exact wording here is for municipalities that have been completed a digital equity plan by April 30th, which we have not. The deadline is May 31st.
Right.
So the letter of the law is, well, we will not have completed a digital equity plan, so the May 31st deadline, by interpreting this literally, does not apply to us.
All right. I
Well,
agree with you, Bob.
but the 70,000 though, so it might subject us to less money. Unless they clarify otherwise, I think we're capped at 70 unless we're all done by the 31st, based on what's here. So we got the 70, cool, but the last 30 is up for debate.
Yeah,
based on what it says here.
Again, let's go with what's on the calendar right now, and presuming the Cape Cod Commission comes in on the 28th, and they presented already the revised digital equity plan, and the select board reviews it, and it still includes the elements that we have included, and presuming that hopefully well in advance of that, a draft of the proposal from the town or from the town's contractor, which hopefully is the Cape Cod Commission, is open for review that includes a bunch of elements. I think if we have to, and we have a May 31st deadline, within 4 days, we can make sure that we have enough requests in for funding, so that we include not only the hardware we talked about, but I think we also we need funds for a digital navigator, and I would presume that would be somebody like the commission, who would be doing something like this county-wide. So I think we would have the opportunity in 2 or 3 days to modify that if there's any kind of a interpretation of this that says we have a hard May 31st deadline.
So the one of the clarity points is just to, make sure the legalese doesn't kill us, is what is the deadline if the digital equity plan isn't done by April 30th? What's the deadline to apply for the implementation grant? Because we won't make this deadline. So even if it's 4 days, we're gonna, 4 days before, we've missed this for the plan. So I think we need some clarity from MBI that we aren't gonna get caught in some gotcha here with the language.
Yeah, I'm just reading all of this, Brian. I think you're right. And as Anne Marie said, we are ahead of the game relative to a lot of other towns who may have just started this whole process. So clearly the May 31st deadline would not apply to them.
Well,
Okay.
I just don't know. I mean, somebody's going to have to answer that question, be it MBI or the Cape Cod Commission, or maybe
Anne Marie,
Liz
can
knows.
we request that you just point this out to Marlene and make sure she's in communication with MBI and gets an exact ruling, so she doesn't waste time, we don't waste time, etc.
Well, John,
Yeah,
I agree
somebody
with you,
needs to request one.
I would prefer that Anne Marie has a better opportunity to get Marlene's busy ear right now to ask this question than say a communication from us to her. And I definitely don't want to go and approach MBI with the questions without going through Marlene first.
Okay, I'll paste the
Yeah,
link in the chat for you.
I'll definitely have a conversation for sure. Try
Okay.
to get these things answered.
Yeah,
And
this,
then,
I think from what I'm listening to this whole, Michigas, this sounds to me like it's coming back to the original question, which was, why does it feel like this committee, which is tasked with learning this stuff and advising on this stuff and working with this stuff, is being kept in the dark?
I think that's a broader issue that we need to bring to our sponsors, to the select board.
Certainly is.
After we get through this, this fire drill up through, May 31st and maybe a short time after. But I will, I'm gonna table that as a question for a communication with the select board. We're gonna come up on June 30th when all of our terms expire. And I think we need clarification on that as we determine how this committee goes forward after June 30th. For those of us who presumably reapply to be on the committee.
Right. Well, I was curious as to when Marlene received this information, because I said it came as a surprise to me, and perhaps it happened in between meetings. I don't know. I just think that time is of the essence here. So clear channels of communication are essential if we're going to be able to really implement any of our plans with this funding. And certainly there's some reasonable things that we agree with that were in the Cape Cod Commission's digital equity plan, things that we can easily do.
Okay, well, I'm going to cease the conversation here unless anybody has anything immediate, and we'll wait for some clarification through Anne Marie of exactly what the way forward is, what deadlines we have, who's going to prepare the proposal. Is it going to be the the town administrator's office, or is it going to be the Cape Cod Commission with as an automatic add-on to their current contract? Those I think are, very salient conversations. And I think the Cape Cod Commission is a definite source to prepare the proposal and maybe implement the work later on, or the county in general, as are we. By the way, one piece of information for those who were not on the select board meeting is an adjacent agenda item was that the town is going to formalize their relationship with the IT department in Barnstable County, another part of the Barnstable County government. And I think they are going to formalize requesting 5 days a week of time from a staff member. Right now, they're kind of doing it month by month on I think it's an intergovernmental agreement of some sort, so they don't need to bid it or anything. I think for the hardware parts of this proposal, I think adding an extra day or two of time from the county staff and paying them for this time to implement the Wi-Fi, to start designing a system to let the library loan Chromebooks, etc. I think that is where some of the money ought to be put in this grant and funded for like a year and see how it goes. That's my personal opinion. Anyway, I stated that in the meeting. So, there is going to be a resource available to the county, to the town from the county that can be expanded, because they're expanding it now right away. That I think is going to be a very useful and responsive resource to manage this. Okay. Is that a correct statement, Anne Marie? I think
Yeah, well, what we've been able to do through the reorganization is to absorb it in the operating budget. So I don't know that grant monies actually need to be used for that purpose. The whole idea of the reorg was to not, have to expend additional monies or cut from another area. So that relationship and that service that the county will be providing is within our operating budget, which is the good thing.
right. My point
So-
was that for the extra work that's going to be needed to put in extra or expanded or better Wi-Fi service, or to provide Chromebooks, etc., on loan from the library, etc., that is going to need extra work. And
Right, but that's all I took it as that all being part of the scope of the planning for townwide, IT infrastructure, as that I assumed that would be. And I will look for that when we do get the contract, the scope of that contract, and what, like I said, the bang for our buck, right? What are we actually getting? What services is the county going to be providing us? And following through with that service.
Yeah, Anne Marie, my one point is that just for instance, if we've hit $70,000 with hardware under this grant, but we still need to think about actually implementing this, and also to provide services for setting up a digital equity navigator program. Those are extra services that could be used, could be proposed to get under the $100,000 ceiling very readily. And that's extra money that means that the Hank or whoever, the fellow from the county, would have extra time paid for, at least for a 1-year budget, to implement the stuff under the Wi-Fi program, as opposed to the demands of his everyday work through the town. Anyway, I'm just saying that that gives extra leeway. If it's not spent because it's not needed at the end, we could turn that back into to MBI. I've done that with grants. That's
Right.
not a problem. It's just when you run tight and I wish I had put an extra day of the guy's time a month to supervise the contractor to wire the Wi-Fi. that's that happens at the end, and regrets don't help us there. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Moving on. Uh, funding opportunities.
Well, we have, so are we gonna talk about the meeting with the assistant town manager?
Anne Marie, if you want to would you bring that up first with you've got to go through Marlene, and your discussion with Marlene said, since Liz is running this contract, we would be very willing to sit at her side and talk about all of the details of what needs to go in this proposal. I mean,
Well, we have to find out who's preparing the proposal first.
right, exactly. Exactly. But
so-
if it turns out it is being done in the town administrator's office, then in terms of helping design the hardware, or at least scoping it initially, you've got at least two people on this committee who've done this for a living. And so we've got people who can provide the details that perhaps somebody in the administrator's office would not have, nor would they have to wait for somebody from Barnstable County to come in and advise them on the hardware.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, you've got a resource here that that's waiting at the gate to help Liz if the proposal is coming out of the town administrator's office. Okay, and at any time, just call me up. But a couple of us can go in. Actually, it should should be me or Jed plus maybe another hardware person. Okay.
Okay.
By the way, regarding the calendar, I will be traveling next week. Jed, I may ask you to chair. I'll let you know whether I'm going to be able to connect or not. I'm taking my wife to Charleston for our anniversary for the weekend, so I'm gonna be gone next week, Wednesday through the following Tuesday.
Okay, so are we gonna meet next week, or are we gonna stay on our every other week agenda?
Well, let's when we get to this agenda, we'll determine that. But if there is a meeting next week, there's a possibility I might not have a good connection other than a cell phone.
Yeah, and I have to take my wife to the eye doctor at 9:30 next week.
Okay,
So,
if both of us are gone, then the quorum disappears. So,
yep.
okay, moving forward. So let's talk about funding opportunities. There is a
Wait,
call.
excuse me, did we highlighting progress on the grant proposal? Is that all sort of folded into what we've been chatting about?
I think we did.
Oh yeah, we covered that in detail. That's all of the, again, town administrator versus Cape Cod Commission.
Yeah. Oh, I get that. I just noticed we have it as a separate item, and I'm trying to take notes. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, again, the originally on the schedule, we had a potential meeting with the town administrator on the schedule on the 17th. But by the way, right now, other than the elements, the scheduling on Brian's timeline is pretty much obsolete. I don't see any until these other questions are resolved. I don't see any way we can follow that specifically. It is. Let me pull it up here. Okay. In terms of the collaboration phase, it all depends on exactly what Anne Marie comes up with her discussion. The minute she says, "Gee, I'm going to give Liz the lead on it," and we want help from the from SciTac, we will be in there. Okay. Is that enough for your minutes, Wendy?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Item B, funding opportunities. The bead challenge. There was one telephone call that MBI or a Zoom call, and it was uninformative is the best I can call it. Brian, any comments on it specifically?
Oh, it was useless. They dodged questions after question after question. We'll get back to you. We'll get back to you. We have to wait until we hear from NTIA. So really, it's hard for it to have been constructive when they are not revealing their draft plan prior to it going to NTIA, which really makes it hard for, you know, everyone who's gonna have to live with the consequences of it to have any input into it. So,
Yeah, and everybody saw that Brian filed a FOIA request to get the any written documentation on all of the questions that that got filed either orally in that meeting or were filed afterwards. And you know, my impression is that they did, from what I saw that came back, wasn't particularly informative either.
yeah,
Well, it had its
frustrated a lot
moments.
of people because they were hiding the Q&A, so it was impossible for anyone to say, hey, like, we also have the same question. So you couldn't get any kind of feedback where it's like, oh, 50 towns have the same question, this one's a priority. So it was a really dysfunctional setup to do it that way. And so it really felt like they were phoning in the bare minimum, to be frank. It was just checking off the statutory requirement to receive the money from NTIA. So.
Okay, well, in any case, the question on the bead challenge is that challenge period is still on the calendar. And we don't have any formal way to do any of the block challenges that I can see.
Supposedly they're paying for resources that will be accessed, but the nature of those resources is not being disclosed. They won't be doling out money directly to the towns. They've got an RFP out for contractors to help with this. So supposedly there's supposed to be some help that we can access. We just don't know what it's going to entail and how to get it and how to apply and what the timeline is. So we got no idea how to, you know, we can't even start getting ready to say, hey, to the town administrator, like, look, 2 months out, there's a thing. And here's the timeline to get it done, because we don't even have the timeline for how to apply for the help. So,
well, the testing part of the challenge is still fixed. I mean, it's still May 15th to June 15th, right? Or is it June 15th to July 15th? I don't remember.
give me a minute, I can find it.
Well, while Brian is looking, regardless, you know, the time here is very short. Again, if they have these facilitator contracts by region, they haven't let those contracts yet. And I think the deadline for even submitting the proposals is this Friday. I just don't understand how they're going to get those folks in place, get them to assist all of the municipalities that are doing this challenge. By the way, just relative to this question regarding funding opportunities, just a piece of information is that the legislative delegation will be at the April 30th select board meeting. Okay, so anybody who wants to attend, we can decide whether to do it formally or not. My guess is that we won't have time to do it formally, but anyone who wants to attend and just as a citizen, just to express concerns about responsiveness from MBI in general, you know, that's an appropriate time to just speak up during the question and answer session there.
That's on the 22nd, that one?
No,
That-
30th.
The 30th.
Beg pardon, okay.
Is that right? The 30th is a Wednesday. I don't have let me find a calendar here.
No, it's the 28th, I think. Yeah, the 28th is a Tuesday.
Well, not if the 30th is a
No,
Wednesday.
the 30th is a Tuesday in April.
Oh, who?
Okay, let's start over. Where are we?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just pointing out with regard to in relation to the uncertainties that we have about the bead challenge, et cetera, and what help we're going to get. Our questions to MBI have been slow, and the responses have been vague. And that's a general concern we've expressed. And anybody who wants to get up and just talk about that on the 30th to the legislature certainly can. I don't think we need a formal submit a formal complaint to be able to get up and speak. Okay. Brian, have you found that yet?
No, still trying to dig it up. It's not on their website, so I'm having to dig
Okay.
up a webinar that was emailed out or
Okay,
something.
well, we'll move on only because it is, to quote Bill Belichick, it is what it is. And anything we can do has to be done, within whatever schedule that they have set. Moving on, GAP round 2 is still in limbo right now because GAP round 1 winners have not been announced. The communication that I did have with New Bedford said that they have not even had questions from MBI about their application, let alone anything more formal. I don't see anywhere we can go. One other element that is here we ought to discuss is the municipal grant. And right now, I just don't see any capacity through the town administrator's office for any willingness to submit for something like that. The one possibility, and it would require a lot of coordination, is that perhaps Verizon could be convinced, if the town were to get that money, to use that to provide a trunk line up to get as far as Roland Finney for the housing authority, and then use the residential retrofit program to go ahead and make the individual connections within the units. Anne Marie, did you have, I'll move ahead to residential retrofit right now. Did you have any communications with Open Cape about that?
Yeah, they're looking to pursue what those grant opportunities that they're may be eligible for with respects to the housing, the
Okay.
retrofit grant.
I made a phone call to Ellen Cummins, and I got voicemail and said she was out of the office and would get back eventually. At that point, I said I put it all in an email. If anybody wants to see the email I sent off to her, I was very explicit about exactly where the opportunities were. We know that the 4 units for the housing authority are now listed on the it's called Appendix C, the big spreadsheet that where MBI lists eligible properties. And I just pointed out in the letter very briefly that FiOS goes right by Continental in Belmont Circle, and that 2 units along Waterhouse Road, Verizon has placed a sign at the top end of Waterhouse Road saying FiOS is coming, so presumably they're very connectable. And then I pointed out that the unit at Roland Finney was just north of the Falmouth line. Stretch that a little bit. that could be connected from their wire house on Depot Road, and say these are ready-made opportunities for Verizon. And then I pointed out that, by the way, the select board responded to your request and sent a letter of support for your application for Gap Network One. Asking for a quid pro quo here. Here, why don't you go and also go and apply for one or more of these to wire up one or more of these facilities. And
Right, so I informed Open Cape of all of that.
Mhm.
What areas just came on, what grant opportunities they may, want to pursue in order to achieve that goal.
Yeah. Well, again, let's hope either one of those goes and submits an application. But at this point, we have absolutely no control other than doing that.
Right, and I can
Okay.
follow up with Open Cape and see, where they're at.
Okay. We know what the deadlines are, and we can contact them after the fact. I pointed out the Bourne Housing Authority could be contacted if they needed any information, if Verizon needed any information about what kind of in-building facilities there were, in-building access, all of the details you need to make a guess as to what it costs to wire an MDU. Okay, are we done with funding right now? I hear nothing else, so we're going to move on.
The dates are not on MBI's website or on the webinar for the challenge, so I'm gonna have to send a clarifying question and let them know, hey, like it's just not on anything.
Right. And you might ask, when will the these regional facilitators or whatever they call them, when will they be in place, and what services would they provide to the towns?
Brian, I do know that April 22nd, Mass Municipal Association, MMA, not Mass Maritime Academy, is putting out a webinar specific to bead. So I've registered for that. Yeah. So, if there's any additional questions we can try to plug, or pursue, let me know.
Anne Marie, if you're attending that, or there's another meeting, if you have an opportunity to talk to any of the other municipalities, it might be useful to just touch base, find out where they are in all of these processes, what kind of responsiveness, et cetera, that they have gotten back from MBI. That would be useful to know before we listen to our legislative delegation on the 30th, and perhaps ask them questions, or just plaintively describe our tough relationship in terms of trying to get information from MBI. My interpretation is that MBI is just grossly overloaded with a very small staff and too much to do as required by the law, and they were just under-resourced when they were set up or when this was handled.
Right.
What was the second question you wanted off to MBI? I was gathering links.
Well, the first obviously is what the challenge interval is, and the second is with regard to these digital facilitators, when are they going to be in place, and what services will they offer to the towns, to the municipalities, in terms of helping with the challenge or other parts of this process?
Okay, I will write something up.
We know that, for instance, not know, but we suspect that Doug Dawson, who's been the consultant for Falmouth, is probably going to apply for one of these, as is Sean Gross, who is the consultant to New Bedford when they submitted their Gap Round 1 grant. So both of those are highly capable folks. Potentially even Sean Gonsalves could jump in here too. Okay.
Yeah, anybody can register for that thing on the 22nd.
Sure.
with MMA. I already registered.
Okay, I haven't checked that. I do have a doctor's appointment on the 22nd, and it may overlap with that, so I may not be there. So
It's
no,
at noon.
yeah, I don't have.
They're always lunchtime webinars. They're always,
Yeah.
they purposely put them at what they think everybody's lunchtime is for an hour.
Because people have day jobs, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Okay, moving forward, public outreach. We have nothing specific to go to from the committee to the enterprise or anybody else right now that I'm aware of.
Well, I can send them our minutes.
Yep.
And
The
that's
minutes go
useful.
out, and that's automatic.
Mhm.
There's no problem at all once we've approved them here.
Right.
The one, if we are going to come up on a testing deadline, I think we ought to consider writing an article for the enterprise and lots of information to go in the Bourne residents page to ask everybody who thinks they have problematic issues with connectivity or speed or service or anything like that, to just test and bombard MBI with test results and how to send those in.
I think we should be, because we need to start cherry picking, because we're allowed to do that. So we almost need them to formally contact the committee if they've got the worst of the worst speed tests. Until the portal is open and the details of how we're going to run it, I'm just afraid we oversaturate people when we need them to be putting it into the portal. So I think
Right.
maybe we start recruiting the worst of the worst internet in town, so we have those people trained and ready for once the portal opens.
Without
Also,
going in,
right now it's not, I hesitate to say and jinx the whole thing. It's not too bad at our house today. We had zero service at all for 2 days, which was entertaining, but now it's back running at 48, 50 maybe. So I'm not sure that's going to be supportive of saying, well, the service here really sucks, even though it is definitely less than the 100 that qualifies as broadband.
Wendy, just to figure out where to go from here. Let me ask: is everyone okay with Wendy writing a request to go on the Bourne Residents Facebook page? And this is part of our information gathering for anybody who thinks that they have connectivity problems, either all the time or periodically, to just contact Wendy. Do you mind serving as a point of contact for that?
No, that's perfectly fine. And actually, I've put something like that up, or even somebody else may have done that, because there's just been a whole long thread about, well, who are you using and is it any good and what are you paying and so forth and so on. So I can go back and harvest all those.
Just say that.
And ask for some more.
Just say very explicitly, we have an upcoming test period to identify places where we have problems. And if you'd like to be part of the testing program for this, just send your name and what service you're on, Comcast or T-Mobile or anything else. Send that to you, and you'll be contacted by the committee on how to do the testing.
Mm-hmm.
And I already put a question in to MBI on how do we handle in the challenge process when the signal alternates between fantastic and zero.
Yeah.
How do you calculate such a very, very different state?
Yeah, taking an average isn't honest.
And so that was one of the questions that made it in the Q&A, and so we have proof that the MBI has received it.
Mm-hmm.
They said that they were going to answer some of the questions in a Q&A format at some point. So if they don't put that out, I think we're well within our purview to demand an answer, since it was formally submitted in the Q&A process.
Okay.
There are about, when last I looked, something like 8,000 people signed up for the Bourne Facebook page. That doesn't mean everybody sees it every day. It doesn't mean that everybody even looks at it. And obviously, it doesn't cover anybody that's got no internet service. And so it's really difficult to run a speed test when you got no speed at all. So, how are we going to be able to capture those data and get them into any kind of meaningful submission to MBI or anybody else?
Well, the only place that would be captured would be the people that are identified in the digital equity study as having problems with the first element of digital equity, which is connectivity.
Right.
And again, I guess it behooves us just to identify. I think they said that 3% of the town has significant connectivity issues. And it's we're going to have to sort that out as one element that we put in. Clearly, speed testing for somebody who's not connected is irrelevant.
Mm,
Well, sometimes people aren't connected just for financial reasons. So
well,
that
there's,
too.
yeah, financial
And
is
there's-
another aspect.
yeah, so there's
Hey,
no,
One
Right, well,
recommendation.
clearly the Massachusetts Digital Equity Plan had two very good, strong data points, in my opinion, that really would make the Cape underserved, right? One of them was that half the people surveyed said that their internet service is inadequate. And it also showed that Barnstable County pays double than Suffolk County. And to me, that those two data points to me, that's a solid case right there for underserved for the whole Cape.
Yeah, we made that point generally, and I think during the challenge process, we file that, and perhaps we do that in consort with other towns, or in parallel with other towns.
Right. So I had two other points on this subject, Bob. So one of them is there any, how does the committee feel about putting something in the enterprise advertising for another committee member?
Yeah, I did send them something like that, and it did not appear because that, to their mind, constitutes an advertisement, and we would have to pay for that.
Oh.
I
Well-
can slather that all around Facebook
How
again.
much?
I'm starting to get more people engaged in the Facebook.
So maybe that's where we put it. Yeah. So maybe
Yeah,
we
it's
do it on
gonna
the
have to go
Facebook
there.
page. Yeah, maybe we do it on the Facebook page. I'd be all for that. How's everybody else
Exactly.
feel about it?
yeah.
I'll just
I mean,
do it
that's-
more and more.
All right. So
My
the
wife
other point,
thinks yeah.
yeah,
Well,
the other point I wanted to bring up was that I distributed to the committee a determination from the Attorney General's office regarding public bodies on residents' Facebook pages.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if everybody looked at it or not,
Mhm.
but my reading of that, and I thought it was pretty explicit. So basically, in order to be considered, what is it, that you're actually meeting as a group, you have to have a quorum that's deliberating on a thread. So just the fact that you're in the group, or even that you post on another part of the page, that's okay. But if you have a quorum that's deliberating on a thread, that's when you cross the line.
It was a very helpful read that it's, strictly if what is it, a quorum starts discussing in the comments, then we're in trouble. But if it's just one or two, it's whatever. It's just a normal.
Mhm.
Right, and it also, if I think a very fine line here is that if you're commenting but not deliberating, it seemed to be okay. But I don't know if we want to walk up to that line.
Yeah, that's a tough line. I think, I think it's important that we have perhaps we have just a point person or two people that respond to Facebook.
I like it. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, it's a good
And
idea.
then the other people can be on the thread but not deliberate, but the people answering the questions and making comments, maybe it's just always two people.
Yeah.
Well,
Let-
I'm
less-
doing it. I'm
less-
doing that already anyway.
Well,
So
and Brian has
Right.
been commenting, so I would propose that Brian and Wendy be the two.
Right.
And
bring,
I would-
bring
I
in-
always scroll through before commenting on anything related to this now, just to be absolutely certain that someone else hadn't even put like a smiley face up in there.
Yeah.
Why make our lives more difficult for no improvement in our mission whatsoever? So And just be
This
careful around these things.
this may sound like nitpicking to some, but the point of a deliberation is to come to a conclusion and formulate an action.
And recommendations to the select board, which is our job. Yes.
Right. But commenting on a Facebook post, even if we all did it all at once, would not meet that standard.
And I think it'll be real close.
So Wendy, you're looking at Webster's on one hand and you're looking at the law on the other hand. And if you look at the definition of deliberation in the open meeting law, just a discussion satisfies that definition.
Yeah, that sucks.
Right. Can I suggest something, which is that because my wife reads me these things all the time, and I have been afraid to comment on them or to even have her comment on them because I was afraid that I might be crossing the line. So can I suggest that if something comes up with a technical question that Wendy put it to Jed or myself or whomever, and then we give her the answer and then she passes it on.
Oh yeah,
no,
I can do that.
but I was thinking along those same lines too, John. Like I said, I don't think it's out of line for us to comment directly. But we just have to be careful that we keep less than a quorum on a thread. That's all.
Well, feel free to shoot me a message or to send me an email or a text or something. If you see something, tell me where you saw it and what it was and what your response would be if you were able to make it, and I can do that.
Okay, because I do see things once in a while.
I think we can just continue to be vigilant. I think we're all trying to be really careful, and we just
I
scroll
agree.
through and
Yep.
read the
Okay, this
comments, see
discussion
that there's
itself
only
is-
like Wendy on it. You know, I think we all acknowledge that we are trying to be exceptionally careful around this because there's no
Oh, yeah.
point being the first to litigate. You know, does the thumbs up sign constitute a deliberation? You know, when three people have commented and a fourth one goes thumbs up, like that's probably the gray area that's going to get litigated next. So like we don't need to be that test case.
And again, the last thing, I know that MJ is super careful about this. The last thing is we don't want somebody complaining back to MJ that we're stepping outside the open meetings lines, and that will then waste her time and waste time on the select board. I think this discussion alone is enough to document that we're very, very solicitous about this law.
Well, and I
Okay.
would say to this point, we've complied, right? I mean,
Yeah,
to this
we're in
point,
full
we haven't stepped out of
Yeah.
bounds, and I think if we just continue what we're doing, we'll be okay.
I
Okay.
think we got a committee of mega nerds. We can probably keep our eyes on whether the typing box has appeared and someone else is about to add a comment. So I think we can
Yeah. Let me
continue to
move on.
monitor this.
I have another idea for public outreach here, and this was being implemented at the Falmouth Town meeting. Falmouth Town meeting was basically going to do a survey of the town meeting members, and again, they've got elected town meeting members as opposed to the general voter population, where they were going to have a little survey where they had 4 options for people to check off. They said, 1, where do you live? And I think, village or zip code or something. And they said, would you like a privately operated fiber optic system that would have a fixed subscription rate for 5 years and with no commitments after that? Would you like a totally public system where the town would build the system and fund it and amortize any debt with subscription fees, pay back the town effectively? The third was, would you like a public-private partnership where a private partner would provide open access to any ISP that you want, but the town would be an investor in this and eventually a co-owner, maybe eventually the full owner of the system, or I don't really care. I just want another option that provides affordable, reliable, and I forget what's the third that we want. Fiber optic.
Economical?
Well, affordable. Okay.
Yeah, affordable, yeah.
Connection as competition to the current ISP provider. and they handed this out at a table out in front. Anne Marie, I've seen this done for other organizations out in front at the registration for a town meeting. Is this something that I know we go through Barry to do this? Is this something that would be problematic to the select board if we did that?
Well, I think you missed it. We already had our moderators meeting and we put in all the requests, and the clerk has put in all the requests for anything other than appearances, easels, etc. So I don't know if the moderator at this point in time, because we did approve the voting handbook yesterday afternoon, on whether that's possible for this town meeting. The special town meeting, fall town meeting.
Okay.
I guess,
Anyway.
Bob, just my comment is on that is that I don't think people would know how to answer that question.
Not yet, no.
How do you pick one? I mean, I think there's other concerns that people have besides how internet's being delivered, like how much is it going to cost me, and is it going to work every day? To me,
Yeah,
I don't
well,
think they care where it
think-
comes
I
from.
think what we're talking about here is improving public education and understanding of these issues, because there's a substantial number of people who think that broadband service is like your water. You turn on the tap and you get water. And if your neighbor is taking a shower, your water pressure doesn't go down. You still have water. And if three of your neighbors are watering their lawn, you can still water yours. That's not how internet, broadband works. And we understand that, but a lot of people they think it's like, the telephone,
Right.
back when you had a telephone in your front hall.
But
And
Well, we might formulate some different questions, right, for the information that we need. And
Well,
we're
that's-
not,
again,
we're
I'm
not
just
found
parroting-
it, so.
I'm just
But the
parroting back
idea-
what was done at the Falmouth Town meeting. And
Right,
clearly there was already a good education process that went forward with the town meeting members because they approved the municipal light plant. And they know about what the debate is right now. I think, maybe we could have some of the education for this be put out on the residents' Facebook page leading up to the special town meeting in the fall. And then at that point, that's an
Right.
opportunity to get in front of the voters and just see what they think.
no, I wouldn't wait
Right.
till fall. I'd start, pumping more of that stuff out on a regular basis.
I think that's
I've been sort of doing copyright infringement, posting Doug's columns or excerpts from them, excerpts, and I'm getting some response back from that. People are starting to pay a little bit more of attention, and I'm trying to not dumb them down, but to distill them a bit, because if they're too
Okay.
technical, people just glaze over and they don't read them. So I'm
A
working
point
on
of
that stuff.
clarification, it's not stealing when we've already contacted him and with attribution that it's his work. So
Oh, good.
just one point of clarity, we have multiple
Good to
times
know.
reached out to
yeah,
him.
you're not passing it off as your own, Wendy.
Oh,
Yeah.
certainly not.
Okay,
when
well, I'm gonna-
when I make a comment on my own, I put it in straight brackets with my initials, so that's clear. But
okay. Right now,
Okay.
I'm gonna table that idea, but something like getting more feedback and more education of the potential users, I think is going to be very useful. We're certainly not going to have a decision on any of this on a system before
No.
the town meeting. So, but I think their committee thought that this kind of contact was very useful. I don't know what they got in terms of responses back, but I will contact what's his name, Mike Newman, about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with Wendy that we probably need to do this sooner than later, because if we
Yeah.
eventually have to get in front of
Oh,
the
yeah.
capital committee, we need to be so far ahead of this. It's not funny. So
Yeah.
Brian, you probably might know about this, but is there any way we could engage Survey Monkey or something for an online response to
sure.
questions?
That's
Of course we
trivial.
can.
I don't know what it costs. I have no idea, but I mean, I get these things
It's
all the
freaking
time.
free. I've done Survey Monkey things for other organizations. It doesn't cost you a dime, and it's just they give you the stats as they occur.
Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah,
we
sure,
could
why not?
set that up, and Wendy could publicize it through at least the residence page and
Sure.
maybe the enterprise, and that way you'd at least get we'd have
And
to
it
put
can,
together the
yeah.
questions, but we get some feedback because I mean, I see Wendy, my wife reads me this stuff all the time about what's on the page, and oh my God, our internet's been intermittent for 5 days now, and what's
Mhm.
going on?
Yeah, you
So-
can put up a Survey Monkey and you can put a time limit on it, I think of up to a year, so, and people can respond more often if things change or if they have a new opinion or whatever. It's not a bad little tool, actually.
Mm.
I think it might be more appropriate to do, some education
Oh,
going,
yeah.
going forward beforehand. And I think a good model would be to just respond or just parrot back some of the deliberations that Falmouth is now going through.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to that in the next item in terms of tech council and liaison with other towns, because that information that Falmouth is going through is being broadcast to the other towns.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to just move forward and just talk about the tech council, and
So
there.
are we gonna basically can D the
Well,
what?
and yeah, I'm sorry, I glossed over that, I should say. Right now, I haven't seen any real willingness from MJ to talk about our presentation in February. Now that we actually should be responding again if we do a quarterly report format. Much of the information in February's presentation, at least in terms of times, etc., is obsolete. And things have moved fast. They know about the other grant opportunities, and the one they're most concerned about is digital equity right now, and they're following up on that with a revised timeline. My question to Anne Marie is, we've been in front of the select board pretty regularly. Do we need to do another formal quarterly report or anything like that?
I
They
don't
don't wanna
think
hear it.
formally, it is in the charge, but let me talk to MJ. Right now, a lot of things are just after town meeting because it absorbs so much of our time in trying to get, budget, et cetera, and some moving parts to not move anymore. So yeah, I probably not. I'm gonna say probably not, because we have been in front of the board.
Could we get
And we have some
could we get
follow-up
that in
things that
writing?
we need
Because
to
I
do.
would, Anne Marie, could we get that in writing? Because I would hate to have somebody come back and say, well, you didn't do your quarterly reports, and so, blah,
Right, and that could just be a statement that's made at one of our meetings.
And
You
will
know,
that be in
as
the-
when we
and that'll
do
be in the minutes,
when we do
presumably?
committee, when we have a standing agenda item that says committee reports, and
Mhm.
and everybody reports out on the latest committees meetings that they've attended. At that point in time, that's opportune to say, do we need, CTEC to come back for a quarterly? Because they're about due, or can we put off to the next quarter, or
Or are you aware
so
enough
that
with what's going on right now in the first and second quarters that it's not really relevant because things are moving so fast?
right,
Yeah.
right.
One
So
other.
I'll make note of that in my when the committee report agenda item comes up at the end of next week's meeting. It's usually at the tail end.
I'm going to, Anne Marie, I want to use the chair's prerogative to try to get you to reserve some time, perhaps at the end of June, as we finish our terms on this committee, at least for 1 year, to talk about exactly where the committee is going, whether they find the select board finds our advice timely and relevant. Talk about our frankly, issues with lack of communication or delayed communication with the administrator's office on things like this digital equity letter. I think that's an appropriate time for them to revisit the charter for our committee and see whether these are the same things they want us to continue doing. and whether we think any of these are being effective in terms of providing them enough information so that they can make relevant decisions. So, you know,
Sure.
I think just keep that in mind. I'm going to just use chair's prerogative to ask you to go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody okay with that?
Great
Oh,
idea.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's item D. The next item is liaison with the Tech Council. And there have been actually two presentations that have been made to the Tech Council by both Boundless and another company called Bonfire. Brian,
So
would you like
did
to?
Boundless actually make a presentation?
No, they canceled. That was
That's what I thought too.
yeah.
Well, they've canceled an official one, and they had they basically did a drop in at one time.
Okay.
And
I-
didn't they hijack one of the meetings, or was that the Broadband Coalition? I don't remember, Brian. Too many of these.
The Cape Cod Tech Council is the one where we had a question to ask, and it got bumped off the agenda when they, took over
Right.
the meeting. So
Yeah, right. So, just to revisit that, very quickly, Boundless still has a proposal in front of Falmouth, essentially to connect the entire town, or so they say, within 18 months.
So but just again, to be clear, that's never been made public. Right? It's only been they've only discussed it, except for that one slide. It's only been discussed in executive session with the MLP.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, the
besides that
details
one
are-
slide, it's nothing's been said publicly.
Well, they did say this in the Tech Council, and again, they were vague, but they expressed a desire to connect all of the towns on the Cape
Yes.
within 36 months.
Yes.
Okay. And the MLP is still drafting. They're still in negotiations with them, and they're drafting a bunch of questions like, what happens after 5 years, or what happens after their venture capital funding decides to cash in and sell them to somebody else, and none of those have been made public. So that is still in play. The other proposal that the MLP got was from Bonfire. And I'm going to try to get some more to drink here. Brian, you were on that call. Would you like to just summarize that a little bit?
Yeah, so Bonfire helps municipalities set up open access networks where the municipality owns it. Bonfire and their associates set up a wholesale model where it basically says any ISP that wants to show up pays, $50, $60 a month, something like that for 1 gig, and then can sell it to customers at whatever price they want to. And so then the ISPs handle the marketing, talking to the customers. They handle everything, even to the modem. They didn't say they were using COS system software, but they were talking about a open access software from Sweden, which that's really only one option. It's COS doing it. And so like if you need to troubleshoot a modem, the ISP can reset it remotely without calling the wholesale department, so to speak. And I think Jed's when we talked to COS systems, they were using SD-WAN, something, I don't know.
Yeah.
You remember the tech?
It's they're using VLANs in order to connect the ISPs to the ONTs.
Yep. And
Pretty
so
straightforward.
and so the ISPs are there's hundreds of them, in the data center in Boston. Several of them work with these open access providers, and they can go after customers. So they handle the marketing, they handle the customer relationship, they handle the why is my Wi-Fi not working, all of that. Bonfire and the associates handle making sure the connection is, make sure the pipes are there and running. And the town just sits there and collects checks effectively.
And pays bills.
Pays the
Well, they
pays
have to
the
pay their bonds.
And so there was 3 ways, I think my best part of the presentation was the slide that described the 3 models. The one, which is the Tilson's model, which is come in and pay for everything and do everything. And then Bonfire had 2 options. One was the town raises a bond, puts up everything, or the town puts up about half, and Bonfire and their associates go out to private equity funds and raise preferred equity to cover about half the costs. And after a set number of years, about 25 years, the private equity is paid off, so to speak. So they enter some kind of profit sharing or fixed return contract for that equity money. And at some date, it's set to sunset. Before they even put the first shovel in the ground, so to speak, the date of that exit's already determined. And so that's the 3 ways to do it. So
Were they talking about revenue bonds, if I'm not mistaken, Brian? In other words, the town would have to be able to generate enough income to be able to make those bond payments. Is that correct?
So that since my background's financing these things, that can be a debatable item, whether you use a revenue bond, whether you use a general obligation. Do you structure it so that there's no payments the first couple of years? What's the interest only period? Like, there's a lot of ways to finance it, but yeah, you could do a revenue bond where it's strictly the revenue. You could do a general obligation bond. It's generally the general obligations are generally cheaper and a little bit easier to do. Revenue bonds are possible. They're a little bit more messy, but they're still totally possible. So it's in Bonfire's case, they basically offer the town a choice of how do you want to do it, and we'll kind of package it up and put it together, and bring in the finance guys, bring in the debt guys, bring in the equity guys, bring in the ISPs, whatever floats your boat, so to speak, for the community and what they want, and they package it up and put it together for you.
And how did they make money on this deal? Is it from the sale price, or is it from the bond repayment, or how did
So
that?
the debt investors make their money from the interest payments. There's a very large market for debt, so that's pretty standardized. The equity guys will have a certain fixed rate of return that they want for their money, or like a target return rate. So the deal will be structured so they get paid back, whatever it is, 20%, 25%, 15%, it depends on the asset class and risk and, whatnot. And Bonfire makes their money being the network operator, managing the wholesale, managing the COS software, onboarding ISPs. So they collect a fee for service for managing it for the town. So the town doesn't have to do, much more than shuffle checks around to where they belong.
Brian, did you? I got the slides from that presentation, and they're very visually appealing. Second, they communicate things really well. I would like to be able to reproduce that slide that you're just talking about with the 3 different models in my other educational efforts here. What do you think about that?
I think we would need permission from them to take their work, because we don't know necessarily if it's slides that they've rented from COS or one of their providers or something. So I think we just need their explicit permission to steal the content.
Could you shoot me somewhere along the line a contact information so I can go and request that?
Yep, I can do that.
We
Thank
probably
you.
ought to go through Steve Smith.
No, I've got the email of the business development guy, so I'm sure he would.
Cool.
They seemed very friendly, so I'm assuming they'd say yes. It's just I don't want to cross any legal issues with plagiarism and copyright without the permission.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But it is a good slide. But it was a helpful slide.
Okay, well, those are the 2 discussions that the Tech Council has presented. Again, Boundless again may be coming back for another Tech Council presentation that's a little more formal than their photobomb or Zoom bomb that they did and bumped us off the agenda 3 weeks ago. Okay, moving on to item F. There has not been any activity with the Broadband Coalition right now. Item G, liaison.
Just the one other thing I'll bring up about Falmouth is that a couple of things. So the MLP is meeting with Falmouth Net. Actually, they met last night, because we know that there's been some difference of opinion between the MLP and Falmouth Net. So they got together last night and met. I haven't heard anything about how that came out. I'll point out that the former executive director of MLP resigned. I mean, of FalmouthNet has resigned, and she's running for a board seat on the MLP.
Yeah.
There are 3 board seats on the MLP that are on the ballot. And I think it's the first Tuesday in May. The other thing I found odd is that Courtney Bird resigned and he's now on the ballot. So I don't know what to make of that. And basically
Time for the
overall,
MLP, but he's running again. Okay,
Yes.
just to be clear. Okay.
yes, there are 5 people running for 3 seats, but they're not. It's like 4 people running for two-year terms, and I think the incumbent is running for the 3-year term.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, that's what's going on in terms of the board.
And one would presume that the reconstituted board would then take up discussions again with Boundless first, probably, and then
Hard to know. It's hard to know because I would say the majority of the people running are firmly in the wholly owned municipal network camp.
mhm.
So they've all written letters to the editor, and they're all think that the boundless idea is misguided.
Huh.
Okay. And keep an eye out. Courtney Bird was tasked by the MLP with coming up with a list of particular questions about particularly the back end of the arrangement with Boundless. So it'd be useful to see that at some point. That would be very instructive for us.
Right, but what's interesting is he's not currently on the board. He resigned.
Yeah. Okay.
But now he's running to go back.
And now he's running to go back. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I guess it's plausible that maybe he resigned verbally and never turned in a letter, but he's running. So, and there's 2 openings so he must have, because there's
Right,
2
and
openings on
also-
the ballot. So he must have. So I don't know.
He
It's an
also
odd
could be doing
situation.
something off the record that he doesn't want open meeting to deal with. That's fine.
Maybe. Yeah. And David Eisenberg, by the way, is running.
Okay, very good. Very knowledgeable people here on this.
Yep.
Let's stay as close to their coattails as we possibly can.
So Jed, is your impression that basically the thrust of all these people is that they want to go with the MLP model, and basically they'd be encumbering the town with debt, as opposed to going with the bonfire idea of, hey, we'll pay for everything, but in the end you'll pay for it?
No, I think it's boundless or not. In other words, I think they're against boundless.
Okay.
I don't think they're necessarily against the bonfire model, based on what they wrote in their letters to the editor.
Okay.
By the way, there's nothing to prevent Boundless to just come in and say, hey, we're here. We're asking for the following. We need this a building permit for a location facility here. We need to put a couple of extra poles here. We're going to go through the the usual permitting process, and we're going to start selling internet. There's nothing to prevent them from doing that.
Totally.
And
And
the
that's
hardware
because-
providers said they can just hang, they had, OLTs that you could just hang from the wires if you couldn't get any ground space, so.
Yep,
And,
that's right.
get a propane generator and just hang them up there and call it a day, so,
Yep.
it is physically possible to just file for a building permit and build and be
Yep.
done with it.
Okay, watch this space. Stay tuned. Okay, liaison with legislators and staff. Again, right now, the legislative delegation is coming into the select board on the 30th. I think we can all, be present and or on Zoom and ask individual questions. I don't think we need anything formal from the committee to go before them. About internet or anything else. So I plan to be present, presuming I can get back. I don't get hung up getting back from Charleston. Anne Marie, have you had your advisory committee with regard to the bridges? Is there?
We did. Yep, we did have our meeting. So the point of contact doesn't exist yet because right now their focus is on funding, funding, funding. So they already have their package as far as like, we're at a point now where we have a feasible design. This is how much it's gonna cost, and their focus is on funding. I think that point person doesn't happen until they get into once the funding's in place, they get into the actual nitty-gritty of detailed design. So at that point, that person will exist. But right now, it's just a team of people trying to get numbers together.
Okay.
But I'll keep at it, and I'll reach out to Army Corps, because they're kind of running somewhat of a parallel project in the event, you know, funding falls through and this doesn't come to fruition. They still have to have a capital plan in place.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so it's what, Charles Martin, I think his name is.
Charles Martin. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay. With regard to the next meeting, I don't see right now any urgent need to meet next week unless we get word back that, oh, by the way, you guys, we need your input right away for a DE implementation proposal or help with it. And number two, I don't see anything else that's super urgent in terms of the others. We've got no resolution on the BEAD challenge, no resolution on gap networks, etc. So I would propose that we meet next on put on the agenda to meet on May 2nd.
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay.
And if like the town manager needs help in a hurry, my capacity is pretty good. So, and if it's you grab technical stuff, we get John and Jed on in a hurry and with under a quorum.
Yeah, we can get a subcommittee in to help, you know, either on the technical or dealing with Cape Cod Commission or anything. We're glad to do it, ready to do the running back and forth.
Okay. Are these funding opportunity items here what you want, Bob?
Yep, I think that's we're still in the same. We're going to continue to under digital equity plan proposal, leave the potential meeting with town manager, and I'd put something like way forward with preparation and submittal of a proposal for the 70,000. I'd be explicit for at least for our purposes, the $70,000 reservation and or opportunities to go to $100,000.
Okay.
Yeah, we definitely, if the town hasn't clarified that, I think we need to just get on the horn with MBI for 10 minutes and ask these. But no reason to duplicate the effort if they've already done so.
Right, but you know, in terms of, you know, if we do have any kind of a May 31st deadline, and it looks like there's an opportunity, I think, you know, we ought to at least start scoping, you know, what a digital navigator might look like and what kind of assistance might be needed there, so that if we have no guidance from anybody else, we perhaps start scoping that out a little bit.
I think there's another grant, but it had no money. It was for like a fellow or something, and it wasn't a very appealing grant. Let me see if I can find that again. It'll take me a little while. It won't come up quickly, so.
You know, again, we're all under the digital equity plan. You know, we can talk about that. We don't need to list that explicitly, but they were talking about a fellow, and it was unclear whether it was town by town or regionally. In other words, for the county.
Oh, here it is.
And I only publish the letters here. These sub bullets are not published, so we can add other items under these. So we can bring it up next time, Brian, without having to affect the agenda.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, I found it. I haven't read through the details, so I just put it in the chat. But
yeah.
All right.
Anne Marie, you just might mention that there might be other funding opportunities that are out there too that go in parallel, that are outside this 70/100 ceilings that they put up. And when you talk to the town administrator, and we are perfectly willing to help draft those for her. This is you know, something that could be done without a whole lot of hands-on time from town administrator staff, so we minimize the burden there.
Oh, there's a fellow position and there's a webinar coming up April 25 to put in an application to host a fellow for June 15th. I'm just gonna get on this webinar and get some more details so I can have some actionable items for us.
Okay. Very good, if you could. Okay, my voice is about shot. And I think we've gone through the full agenda.
Okay.
We will see you all at the, or many of you at the select board meeting on the 30th, and we'll go forward from there. Okay, and then our meeting is on May 2nd. And
Yeah.
at 9:40, I think we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.